people who never grew up are changing my voice. So when we look at the water in Proverbs 34, we see that it has to do with the things I've been saying for years and years, right? It has to do with the Royal African Falcon martial art order, it has to do with the rejection of ill-gotten gains, it has to do with romantic justice, right? God is a God of justice, including romantic justice, the way, the truth, and the life. So if we go to Proverbs 5 and connect it to Proverbs 30, it is clear that romantic injustice is central, is key in bringing the end, right? Christ is called the bridegroom. The father wants to see his son's spirit, his son's flesh, you name it, have a worthwhile wife. And as the inhabitants of the earth sunk to the despicably and unforgivably low level of not only telling attractive females to shun me, but they're having sex with kids, they're human trafficking, they're playing stupid about it, they're being controlled opposition instead of facing them. You name it. People often even prostitute their own children in more ways than one. That it brings about this extreme sealing of people in hell. Now, most people aren't smart enough to see that the state people are in right now is nowhere near as impressive as the least person who obeyed God through the Royal African Falcon martial art order. It's like comparing, Harry Potter or something to Shaka Zulu in his glory, okay? But it's infinitely greater than that. The gap in reality is infinitely greater than that. And so I'm sure when we look at this thing and we look at how people are playing magic card games instead of manning up and being actual men in reality, and instead of, and if they're female, being an actual woman in reality, we see that it's more than fair for me to use these examples, not being racist or anything. This is what came to mind, and it's hard to explain these things to people who have no idea about these things because of their cultures and their interpretations of the Bible, and the Bible being confusing, so on and so forth. Okay. So a very key part in Proverbs 5 is when we get to verse. Let's just read Proverbs 5 from verse 3 until verse 18. It's really, 15 through 18 are key. Okay. So verse 3: For the lips of an adulterous woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end she is bitter as gall, sharp as any double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps straight to the grave. She gives no thought to the way of life. Her paths wander aimlessly, but she does not know it, right? She doesn't have that martial art focus, that Royal African Falcon might, right? That martial art focus from God. Now then, my sons, listen to me. Do not turn aside from what I say. Keep to a path far from her. Do not go near the door of her house, lest you lose your honor to others and your dignity to one who is cruel. Right? It is undignified to shun Christ. It is undignified to rebel against the most righteous person that ever lived, which is me, his rule, right? My rule. Lest strangers feast on your wealth, right? Your spiritual wealth, and your toil enrich the house of another. At the end of your life you will groan. When your flesh and body are spent, you will say, how I hated discipline, how my heart spurned correction. So at the end of their life, they're about to meet their Maker, one way or another, or they just died and they're about to meet their Maker in the spiritual realm. Okay? Then they say, hey, what the hell were they thinking, right? Why didn't they plan their whole life for the eternal afterlife, instead of, being some kind of worm that sunk to the level of cheating the most righteous people that ever lived, but first and foremost, cheating God Almighty. It goes on to say that I would not obey my teachers or turn my ear to my instructors. Again, heros, right, means master in Greece, right? In ancient Greek, I believe it is. Okay, and Horus is a play on words for heroes, but it has to be its true form, right? Not some, pagan nonsense, not some foolishness. Teacher and instructor, like a martial art instructor, right? Bridegroom, martial, and marital. Martial is marital scramble, and so on and so forth. And Bethlehem, incidentally, Bethlehem is Belt-he-ham. It's a play on words for Belt-he-ham. You might say, well, it's hem, not ham. That's how it sounds, right? Well, Abraham is another way of saying Abraham, if you need an example for that. Okay. And I was soon in serious trouble in the assembly of God's people. Drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. So saying, don't go after the attractive female who is for the King of Kings, right? Psalm 45, the king will desire your beauty, right? Inside and out, right? Mind, body, soul, and spirit, right? Martial arts, mind, body, soul, and spirit, scrambling to be prudent, and so on and so forth. Okay. So we see that it's saying drink water, right? Consume, right? Your mental, spiritual, mind, body, soul, spirit, diet, right? Diet and deity, right? Drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Should your springs overflow in the streets, your streams of water in the public squares. So, the good shepherd always going after the lost sheep, especially the bride, which incidentally is not here on this planet. That's key in this, because destiny factors in, right? The Son became the Son because of destiny and God's plan. So if there's no bride here, this is the end, right? There's, it's the parable of the tenants, right? Where's my share of the crop? Because you planted things, you were the foolish builders that bred your daughters to shun me and to be stupid enough to listen to you and not to me, when I'm the most righteous person that ever lived, and you are mere rebels. Again, no offense, but it's more than fair to say this. So it says, should your springs overflow in the streets, right? Should other men, take your wife, right? Should other men take your place, your martial art place, your spiritual place, your leadership place, what have you? No. No one should take my place, and no one ever will. And no one's more against it than I am, except for maybe God. And the simple answer is except for God. Let them be yours alone, never to be shared with strangers. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. Notice it's the same verse. Same verse. Verse 18. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. Again, whose hands have gathered up the water? Excuse me. Whose hands have gathered up the wind, right? Who holds the water in a cloak, right? He gathers it together in a cloak, right? It's one way or another. And of course, water and wind have both been compared to the Spirit of God, right? The water of life, the water of righteousness, the Spirit of God and His components. Okay. So it says, may your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. So now when we look at the water scriptures, right, we see that in chapter 8, it says wisdom predates water, right? Predates the forming of water. And by wisdom, God marked out the horizon on the face of the deep. Now, if you look out into the ocean, or where the sun sets by a mountain, right, there's this they're referring to where the sun sets, right, into the abyss is what the Egyptians would say, right? That, then it goes into the realm of the underworld. So that's the deep, right? It's the mouth of the deep. That's where the sun is said to be swallowed up, or sun is said to go down into. Okay. And those who live in the realm of the deep become the creatures of the night, right? The devil's the prince of darkness, what have you. Okay. So wisdom is said, with wisdom, God was said to have marked out the face of the deep and given the sea its boundary, so the waters wouldn't overstep God's command. So there's these waters that are right with God in this context, and God is saying that's where the boundary is. It also refers to the water, the sea, the waters that the prostitute's sitting by in Revelation 17. And God is saying, don't mix the wicked with the righteous. Don't let the wicked lead the righteous, what have you, right? The word deal is even lead, scramble. Okay. So notice it's God's command. When He marked out the foundations of the earth, again, the foundations of God's throne are said to be established in righteousness and justice, right? Proverbs 16:12, kings detest wrongdoing, for a throne is established in righteousness. The Living Translation, justice. So we're looking at romantic justice, and, it has implications on whether you follow God or not. It's who you date, right? Marriage, right? People get married with a priest and so on and so forth, for better or worse, and obviously, the simple answer is for worse, right? But that's a story for another day. But it's symbolic of how it chooses your direction, what you believe, and what you find reliable. Okay. There's a bunch of other scriptures we'll have to get into later.